Happy Columbus Day. I am Dyron Castro Torres, the genealogist, and today we're going to be talking about if Christopher Columbus left any descendants on Puerto Rico. Let's get right into it using only documents. Okay, this is a brief description of Columbus, who was actually called Cristobal Colón with an N, sometimes with an M, but never Columbus. That's an English distortion. He was born in this town called Cugares, and it is a city close to Genoa, Italy. His family hails from Plasencia, Lombardia, and they are of noble lineage. His brother Bartolome Colón went to see King Henry VII of England for permission for his voyage. It was turned down. Then he went to Portugal to ask King João II of Portugal, and he was turned down. And finally, he went to see the Catholic monarchs of Spain, King Fernando of Aragon and Queen Isabel of Castile, and they gave him permission for 3 boats, the famous Niña de Pinta de Santa Maria, for his first voyage of discovery to the Indies. They left on August of 1492. The boats were captained by the famous Pinzon brothers, Martin Alonso Pinzon, Francisco Martin de Pinzon, Martin Alonso Pinzon, Francisco Martin de Pinzon, and Vicente Yañez de Pinzon. They left from Palos in southern Spain and went by the Canary Islands, stayed there, and then headed west towards the Americas, which they discovered in October of 1492. They met with some Indians. Guarahami was one of them. They discovered Cuba, Haiti. They were peaceful with the Indians at first, especially with one of the kings called Guacanacari. They left 20 or 30 men in Santo Domingo now. It's called Santo Domingo, Haiti. And the other 2 ships went towards Spain because the Santa Maria crashed. So they left their men and the remainder went to Spain. They met up with the monarchs, the Catholic monarchs in Barcelona, and he became the admiral of the Ocean Sea with the privileges that they worked out in the Santa Fe agreements. He became the admiral, Don Cristobal Colón, the first discoverer. This is the second governor, Francisco de Bobadilla, who would actually end up jailing Columbus. Fray Nicolas del Vando came to America with a lot of men, including Diego Ramos, who we'll be talking about later. And then the 4th governor was Admiral Don Diego Colón, who was the son of Christopher Columbus. You can see they discovered San Juan, Puerto Rico, one of the subjects of our video. Right here, we'll talk about the 4 voyages. As you can see, he only made 4 voyages to the Americas. The first one was 3 ships, 86 men from 1492 to 1493. He left one of the ships here. The Santa Maria was wrecked on Christmas. That's why they called it La Navidad. They left the 20 to 30 men, and the rest of the men left back to Spain. Landed in Portugal in 1493. Second voyage, 17 ships, 1,500 men, and it lasted about 3 years. This is when they discovered Puerto Rico. They also discovered their men on La Navidad were all killed. He heads back to Spain 3 years later to defend his name because a lot of men were basically throwing him under the bus, saying he wasn't a good leader, which is up for debate. The third voyage was from 1498 to 1500. 6 ships, 226 people. This is when he discovered South America, and he's goes back to Santo Domingo, and this is when he was arrested by Francisco de Bobadilla in 1500 and sent back to Spain in chains. The king and queen didn't let him return for a couple years. Was it 2 years? 1502 to 1504. 4 ships, 147 people. And this is when they told him not to go to Hispaniola, but he went anyway. And he predicted a hurricane that killed Francisco de Bobadilla and also the king Guacanacari. A lot of gold was also. Then he went on to discover Panama and Central America. Then he got marooned here. His ships were all lost. And he was stuck on Jamaica for about a year. And this is when he tricked the Indians into giving him food by predicting a solar eclipse. Then he finally gets saved by Nicolas de Ovando, and he heads home. 1504, never to return again. He dies in 1506. Next, we'll talk about his son, very briefly. He was the second admiral, Diego Colón. Real quick, just a quick record to show you. Cristobal Colón, the admiral of the Indies. When he died, all his privileges went to Don Diego Colón, his son, successor, Diego Colón, the second admiral of the ocean, governor of the islands discovered by Christopher Columbus. He had a few children, one of them being Christopher Colón, after his father. This is one way to spell Cristobal Colón. He was a knight of one of the religious orders, the Order of Alcántara. Cristobal Colón, son of the Admiral of the Indies, which is Diego Colón. This is the grandson of Christopher Columbus. Okay. He was actually also a conqueror in his own right. The Indians of the Caribbean Indians, the Caribe, who were enemies of the Taíno, which is the other Indian group. They were in the islands of Guadalupe and Dominica, and they were coming back to the Spanish islands of San Juan, Puerto Rico, and Santo Domingo to harass and damage the property of the populators of the islands, whether they were Taínos, Christians, Spaniards, or even Africans. So they sent the grandson of Christopher Columbus, the son of Diego Colón, to go basically fight the Caribs on Guadalupe and Dominica. This is his permission to depopulate those islands. Okay, this is the official tree of the Columbus family. This is the descendants were fighting over his property. So this is the official tree. I say official because I'm going to prove that there were people left off. So we got Christopher Columbus, first admiral of the Indies. He married Felipa de Muniz, a Portuguese noblewoman. They had a child, Diego Colón. His successor, he married Maria de Toledo, who was a cousin of King Fernando. They had a few children. This is Christopher Columbus, the grandson. He married 3 times, but he only had children with Magdalena Anaya de Guzman. And one of the children, his daughter, Maria Colón de Toledo, she married Don Luis de Avila, and this is their children, Christopher, another one, and Luis Colón de Toledo. And I'm going to prove that they had at least 2 more children. Remember his name because he'll come up later. Okay, so this is a birth record from 1591 of Magdalena de Avila, the daughter of Luis de Avila. He was a mayor of Santo Domingo, and Maria Colón. She was not listed on that tree. And then also we have, this is from a lawsuit between the descendants of Columbus. They were fighting over his property. And in 1621, Don Luis Colón, or de Avila, said that it's true that he had a brother, an older brother, and he was named Don Bernardo de Avila or Colón. So the names were interchangeable, but they usually used the more prominent name, so he probably went by Colón. Son of Doña María Colón, and the said Bernardo Colón or de Avila was a claimant to the state of Veragua, which was Columbus's title. But as you can see, we'll go back here. As you can see, this is the official tree. Luis Colón, he said he had an older brother that is not mentioned. And then I already showed you that he also had a sister named Magdalena. So no Bernardo, no Magdalena. So people were intentionally left off of this tree because they were writing them off in order so that they didn't have to get paid or have a claim to his duchy. So I'm going to show you another Colón who was likely a son of the same Luis de Avila and Maria Colón, Juan Colón, and he's in Panama, and this is 1610. This isn't paying some kind of tax of 100 pesos. That same Juan Colón got into some trouble in 1614 for trading with the Indians or some kind of contact with the Indians, and he received 2 sentences. Then that same Juan Colón pops up in Puerto Rico in 1616 when they open up a church in Cuamo, Puerto Rico, which is almost in the center of Puerto Rico. So he's one of the founders of this church. 1616, and this is a list of the founders. There he is right here, Juan Colón, one of the founders of Cuamo, Puerto Rico. So he's the first Colón or Columbus in Puerto Rico. He's the only populator because Christopher Columbus didn't leave any descendants in Puerto Rico. Diego Colón didn't have any descendants in Puerto Rico. Christopher, there's no evidence of him ever being there, the second Christopher. And this is his grandson, popping up in 1616, 100 and something years after the discovery. He marries a woman that is descended from the old conquerors of Puerto Rico. Her name is Lenore de Luyendo, and I'm going to talk about that family real quick. The first of that family to arrive in Puerto Rico is a man called Diego Ramos, and he arrives with Nicolas de Ovando, the third governor that we spoke about. And after the conquest, which of Puerto Rico was about 1511, so in 1517 he brings his wife, Lenore de Valera, and his young daughter, also called Lenore, but he has another daughter named Maria. So remember this name, Lenore de Valera, because her descendants take the same name, a few of them. This is the daughter of Diego Ramos, the one I was just talking about, Maria. This is in 1557. Her second husband is named Juan Maldonado. He marries Doña Maria de Orozco. Her first husband was named Francisco Juancho de Luyendo. Francisco Juancho de Luyendo was also a conqueror of Puerto Rico, a very rich man, and he was a Basque. He was from northern Spain. This is one of their grandsons or great-grandsons. He talks about the family. This Esteban Cordero de Luyendo. He's a church official, and this is basically an application for promotion where they talk about their family history. And he says over here that he is a legitimate son of Manuel de Cordero and Ana de Orozco, and he is a grandson on his mother's side. So Ana de Orozco is the daughter of Juancho de Luyendo and Lenore de Manuel, and he is the great-grandson. So Juancho de Luyendo's father is Francisco Juancho de Luyendo, the husband of Maria de Orozco. And he was a Basque noble, conqueror of Puerto Rico. This is in 1658. Another one of their descendants that explains the family dynamic. This is in 1661 in Puerto Rico. We got, it says right here, Francisco Juancho de Luyendo. He was married with Maria de Guzman y Orozco. That's Maria de Orozco that we were talking about. Pay attention to this Guzman name, because a lot of the female descendants keep using it. And I can't really tell where it comes from originally, but they tend to keep this name, Guzman y Orozco. And she's the daughter of Diego Ramos de Guzman. This is Diego Ramos, one of the first conquerors and populators of Puerto Rico. One of the children of Francisco Juancho de Luyendo and Maria de Guzman Orozco. One of their grandchildren was Gregorio de Luyendo. These are all church officials. Bernardino Benitez de Andrada de Luyendo. So, one last one. This is another church official applying for a promotion. His name is Tomás Martín de Luyendo in Puerto Rico. This is in 1675. And he says right here that he's the son of Tomás Martín and Lenore de Valera. Remember, I told you that name will pop up again. She's named after her grandmother, or probably great-grandmother. And he's saying that his grandparents are descended from old Christians and descended from the conquerors of the island, meaning Diego Ramos de Orozco and Francisco Juancho de Luyendo. So that's that branch. So Juan Colón, that we talked about already, marries Lenore de Luyendo. And they had 3 children who I'm going to talk about right now. The first of their children was named Diego Ramos, after his great-grandfather, Colón de Luyendo. And he was a lieutenant of Guamo, the place where Juan Colón was one of the founders. That was in 1671. This is a family tree of one of their descendants. This is in the archives of the Indies and Segovia. See, so Diego Ramos Colón, who we spoke about, married Juana Diaz de Sandoval. He had a few children. One of them is Maria de Colón, who married Nicolas Rodriguez de Matos. One of their children was Estefania de Matos, who married Antonio Rodriguez Correa, also known as Antonio de los Reyes Correa, who was a military hero of Arecibo. They had a number of children, including Francisco Rodriguez Correa, who married Maria Manuela Rodriguez de Matos, and they had a few other children that we'll end up talking about. So that's evidence of Diego Ramos. The other child of Juan Colón and Leonor de Luyendo would be Juan Colón, Capitán Juan Colón de Luyendo. Right, one of his sons is getting married here in 1684. His name is, he's also captain, Antonio Colón de Luyendo, and his father, Juan Colón de Luyendo, named after his own father, he married Catalina de Espinosa, likely a descendant of Pedro de Espinosa, another conqueror of Puerto Rico. And that Antonio Colón, the one that was getting married, this is his daughter, and he had most of his children with his first wife. See, Captain Antonio Colón de Luyendo. His first wife was a woman named Catalina de Alvarado. See right here, she's already dead. We'll come back to the Alvarado family towards the end, briefly. So Diego Ramos Colón de Luyendo, one of the kids. Then Juan Colón de Luyendo was his brother. And the other child of the 3 is a daughter, and her name is, she's named after her mother, Doña Leonor Manuel de Luyendo. She is a widow. Her husband is a lawyer, Benito López de Castillo, and their children is Doña Catalina, Doña Mariana, and Doña Isabel. And they inherited her property and that of her deceased husband. This is from the 1673 census of San Juan, Puerto Rico. This is Leonor Manuela, which is Manuela de Luyendo. This is her. This is her daughters, Doña Isabel de Castillo, Doña Catalina de Guzman. Remember, I told you, remember that name. Just pops up out of nowhere again. And then Doña Mariana de Castillo, the same 3 daughters that she mentioned on the other record, the daughters of Benito de Castillo. And as further evidence, we'll get to here. To her, the daughters of this couple, so Jose Martín de Cabrera is the son of Jose Martín de Cabrera, and Maria de Barbosa. And he married Ana Tomasa de Santana, which is another name that comes out of nowhere, because her parents' name is Juan Diaz Fibos and Catalina Lopez. This is also known as Catalina de Guzman. Her father was Benito Lopez de Castillo, but she also went by Guzman. And this marriage received a third and a fourth grade of consanguinity, which means that they were related somehow, and I'll show you how in a minute. This is to show you that their daughter also took the Guzman name that has been passed down to a lot of the daughters. See, Dominga Guzman. She's the daughter of Juan Diaz Fibos and Catalina Lopez. Okay, I'll show you how they are related to this family. So remember I told you that the marriage received the third and the fourth grade of consanguinity. Josef Martin de Cabrera and Ana Tomasa de Santana. So she's the daughter of these. Catalina Guzman Lopez, who was the daughter of Lenore, the second Manuel de Leyendo, who marries Benito Lopez de Castillo. She's the daughter of Lenore the first Manuel de Leyendo, who marries Juan Bernardo Colón de Avila. I put them because I believe that these two are the same man. It's clear that they both existed, but there's a lot of evidence that makes me believe that they're the same man, including many, many descendants of these two, using the name Bernardo, Bernardino, Bernalda, Bernardina, names like that. And then Josef Martin de Cabrera is the son of Pedro Martin de Cabrera. I said that he was the son of Jose before, but he's the son of Pedro Martin de Cabrera and Maria Barbosa, who is Pedro is the son of Leonor de Valera and Tomas Martin, and this is the ancestor that they share. So the third, 1, 2, 3, with the fourth, 1, 2, 3, 4. Evidence that she is the daughter of them. Now over here, another marriage that we're going to talk about that gives evidence is the marriage of Juan Blas de Matos and Francesca de Correa. This is in 1717 in Arecibo, and this marriage received a fourth grade of consanguinity, which means they're related somehow, and I'll show you how. Okay, this is the marriage. He's the son of Pedro Sanchez de Matos, the first mayor of Ponce, and Maria Colón de Alvarado, who in turn is the daughter of Antonio Colón de Leyendo and Catalina de Alvarado. I showed you his second marriage, and I showed you their other daughter that proved that these two were married. He is the son of Juan Colón de Leyendo and Catalina de Espanosa. Then Francesca Correa, I showed you that the family tree of her aunt, and she's the daughter of Antonio de los Reyes Correa and Estefania Colón, who is the daughter of Maria Colón and Nicolas Rodriguez, who in turn is the daughter of Diego Ramos Colón de Luyendo and Juana Díaz Sandoval, making these two brothers children of Juan Bernardo Colón de Avila and Leonor de Luyendo. Fourth grade of consanguinity. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. These two are brothers. This right here is the merits of Sebastian González de Villafaña. His wife is descended from these families. So they say Pedro Sanchez de Matos, who we spoke about, and Maria Colón, who is also Alvarado. They have a daughter named Juana Colón de Matos, and her brother is a church official, the Archdeacon of Puerto Rico, Juan Lorenzo de Matos. And he gives us the smoking gun of the question of the day. Did Christopher Columbus leave descendants in Puerto Rico? This is in 1730. Juan Lorenzo de Matos and he's in Puerto Rico. And this is 12 pages long, but if you go to page 10, it says it very clearly. The said rationer, which is Juan Lorenzo de Matos, is a legitimate descendant of the families of Admiral Christopher Columbus, the first discoverer of the New World, and Admiral Pedro de Alvarado, very famous conqueror of Mexico, and he was a lieutenant of the great Hernando Cortez in the conquest of Mexico. And they're in Puerto Rico. So this is evidence without a doubt that Christopher Columbus and Pedro Alvarado left descendants in Puerto Rico. This is what the final tree would look like if you put it all together. Diego Ramos de Guzman Orozco, his wife Leonor de Valera, their daughter Maria de Guzman married Francisco Juancho. They had Juancho de Leyendo, who married Leonor de Manuel. She had a number of children, including Leonor de Valera, who had Pedro Martin. This is the marriage we talk about, the third with the fourth degree. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is Leonor, the second Leyendo, Manuel de Leyendo, mother of Catalina Guzman. Then the Colón family, Christopher Columbus, son Diego, married Maria Toledo, son Christopher, daughter Maria Colón, who married Luis Davila. They had Juan Bernardo Colón, their 3 children, Juan Colón de Leyendo, Diego Ramos Colón de Leyendo, Leonor II Manuel de Leyendo. Diego marries Juana Diaz Sandoval, who has a daughter named Maria Colón. She has a daughter named Estefania Colón, who marries the famous Antonio de los Reyes Correa. They have a daughter who marries with a 4th degree of consanguinity to Juan Blas de Matos, son of Maria Colón de Alvarado, Pedro Sanchez de Matos. Her father is Antonio Colón de Leyendo, who marries Catalina de Alvarado. His father is Juan Colón de Leyendo, married Catalina de Espanosa. This is the family. This marriage received the 4th degree of consanguinity. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And this is Juan Lorenzo de Matos, who we read his merits, confirmed that his family is direct descendants of Christopher Columbus and Pedro de Alvarado. So, did Christopher Columbus leave descendants in Puerto Rico? Yes, without a doubt. Thank you for listening to this video. Like and follow. Happy Columbus Day. Pa'lante.